Should Ann Arbor continue the DDA with its current financial structure that encourages bigger and more expensive development in the downtown development area? TIF financing increases funding to the DDA as parcels in the DDA increase in tax value, as I understand it. Second question for Chuck. Do you feel any conflict of interest voting on issues for the city government, DDA, and AATA in that your wife is so connected? Vivienne starts.
So I'm supposed to answer the first question? I am not going to address the second question. I think it would be valuable to reassess the role of the DDA in Ann Arbor city government. We had a 30-year charter extension, and I don't know what legal recourse we might have to re-examine that. So I'm afraid I'm speaking from some ignorance on that. However, what I have noticed in recent years, as I already indicated, I think the role and the scope of the DDA needs to be re-examined. One of the questions I have about it is it's basically become like an unaccountable government in its own right. And it's setting agendas, it's setting priorities, and it's got a substantial revenue flow. You know, it's like an organism. You give it lots of fuel and it grows. And I think that the priority of the DDA in recent years has been to increase development that has a higher taxable value so that they get more TIF funds, so then they can use that to increase. It's sort of a development engine is what it's become. And I think we just need to say, is this what we really want? Because the original idea of a DDA is to keep your downtown alive, not necessarily to turn it into an economic development engine, which seems to be what they are attempting to do now.
I think that there are some things that the DDA does well. I think there are some things that the DDA doesn't do well. For example, the city had a lawsuit about our handicap accessibility and our sidewalk curb cuts. There's a lawsuit against the city. It was the DDA that funded getting in ADA-compliant curb cuts with the raised bumps so people with vision impairments are able to tell when they're approaching a curb. I think that's a good thing. I think some of the things that the DDA does provide real public benefit and need to be supported. I've been, my wife Nancy, who we'll get to in the second part of the question, is an alternative transportation proponent. That's what she does full time, is try to get people out of their single occupancy vehicles and into buses, biking, carpooling, whatever. On the one hand, the DDA has been funding a lot of her program to get downtown employees to use the bus and other sustainable transportation choices. I think that's a good thing. On the other hand, now that the DDA has the debt from the underground parking structure to address and the mutual beneficiary agreement with the city over parking revenue, there's been an increased focus on the DDA around just looking at parking revenue because of that sort of that pincher move that they've been put under. I think that's not. I don't think that's an appropriate capture of what the DDA's mission is or should be. So there are things where the DDA could do a better job, and we've already discussed the concerns around the Connecting William Street process. In terms of DDA structure overall, I'll be honest, when I look at things like the proposed redevelopment for the site of the Georgetown Kroger, I get excited about that for two reasons. One, the residents want that blight in their neighborhood removed. I've got friends who live right by it, and they're withholding, they're not giving any hope until they see work actually begin because it's been pushed off so far. But they really want something else there. So for the neighborhood, there's a positive, but also the projections are that the proposed redevelopment of that site would add $500,000 in property taxes to the community. I don't know the exact breakdown of that, but I believe that's not just city, but county, WCC, library, the whole local tax fee portion. Now that provides, now I'm not taxes for the sake of taxes, but when we talk about things like funding safety services, funding leaf pickup, that helps close that gap. But now when there's a new development in the DDA, as Vivienne mentioned, that doesn't address that citywide needs gap in the same way. So I think it is worth saying, how do we make sure, I think we do need a vibrant downtown. I think we have a vibrant downtown. I think there are a lot of groups that deserve the credit for it, especially our local business community, our locally owned business community. But how do we make sure that those TIF capture funds are serving, yes, the downtown and the broader community? And I do think that's a conversation we need to have. I'm short on time here, but in terms of my wife's role, as I said, my wife works for her position is part of the AATA, Ann Arbor Transit Authority. It's funded, her salary is funded by federal grants, and some of the program monies she administers are DDA monies. So the first issue of conflict of interest is disclosure. There's no secret about my wife's funding, my relationship to her. We're married. That was a joke. Married with child. And I'm very proud of the work she does. I don't want to do anything that's going to endanger her great work of promoting sustainable transportation. So I'm disclosing, I'll continue to disclose her work, and if particular votes come up that require recusal, I will recuse myself so as to obey the law and not endanger the great work that she does.
I just wanted to say that I think the fact that the DDA is administering the parking utility as well as fulfilling their role as a development authority sometimes leads to confusion. And I think that when we look at the role of the DDA in the future, we need to be sure that we're not talking about apples and oranges, because I think that on the whole they've done a good job on administering the parking utility, although, as I said, we're starting to use it as an instrument policy, which worries me.